All right, Kristy, are you with us?
Yes, hi. Can everyone hear me?
I think they can.
Okay, perfect. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for y'all's patience with some technical difficulties, but I'm so happy to be here.
No, no problem at all. And always start every video call with a reboot of your computer and your router. That's just good advice.
Yes, exactly. I am definitely going to keep that in mind.
Very cool. So I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Dan Costa, the editorial director of Techonomy, and we are here ramping up for Techonomy Climate West, which will take place in Mountain View, California on March 28th. Tickets are still available. You can click on them in a link that'll be over to the right or to the down, but we'll get that link posted there. My guest today is very special. It's Kristy Drutman from Brown Girl Green. And we're going to talk about green jobs, the green economy, how to find a job in the green economy, and different trends taking place there. Kristy, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here.
So let's talk about Brown Girl Green. So you didn't always have a job board. You launched the job board late last year. Talk about like the decision to do that and what kind of activity you've seen there now that you're live.
Yeah, so for people who aren't familiar with my platform is called Brown Girl Green, which is a multimedia platform focused on, bridging accessibility gaps when it comes to climate education and diversity, inclusion, and representation within the climate space. And with that, I started posting a lot of content related to a whole variety of topics, which eventually led to me talking about the green economy. So it honestly started with me just realizing it was so hard for me to get a job when I was finishing university a couple years ago. And I was like, why don't I just start crowdsource finding some jobs on the internet? And so it started off as an Instagram post where I just started posting sustainability jobs or climate jobs that I found. And people are just going nuts over it. People are like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, you're making it so easy and accessible to find, positions. And that was just on my main platform, Brown Girl Green. And it got to the point where everyone was like, can you just make this its own thing? Like, we love these posts, we love this content. And getting young people especially excited about the prospect of having to build a career pathway, and everyone being like, yeah, like, I don't know what to do now that I got X degree out of college. How do I get a job in this space? And so we soft launched it about a year ago. Our 1 year anniversary is going to be end of this month, as its own social media Instagram platform, just posting jobs and content about the green economy. And within the first week, we had 3,000 followers.
Mhm.
It was insane. And it showed that there is such a high demand to make green jobs more visible, to make the green economy more palatable, especially to young people who have not felt like these climate career pathways are necessarily that clear to them. And we wanted to create a space on the internet that would start getting that conversation going. And then it became more tangible and real, where we had more companies and organizations starting to want to post with us and having actual people give us testimonials that they got their first job through us and that they'd be searching for months, and that we just made it direct, easy, and accessible for people to find their positions. And so what started off as an Instagram post is now an established company with a team of 6. And I'm so excited to see how this continues to grow. But I just think the creation of the Green Jobs Board has been such an organic journey. And I truly feel like it's a testament to the demand and the need to demystify what exactly is a green job, how to get people involved and excited to build a career pathway in this space, and to ultimately work towards collective decarbonization in a way that brings more people to the table.
So what kind of jobs can people expect to find there when they go? Is there a range of different titles? Like,
Yeah.
and what different levels are available on the site?
Yeah, so I mean, when we first started, a lot of it was entry level jobs, mostly because I, was thinking about my position as I graduated university and like what was available. But as time went on, it wasn't just entry level jobs. We started to do intermediate level, and we even started hiring for executive level. And then it started to range. At first, it was mostly nonprofits and NGOs. Then it started going to for-profit companies, then government organizations, to then climate tech, which I know is very relevant to the techonomy audience and the people tuning in. So yeah, it started with, what you would think of as like your conservation jobs, your field researchers, your people maybe doing some of the science and the background research, to now we're seeing, actual like software developer jobs, development jobs, accountants, account executives. We're now seeing jobs that are focused on trying to, how do I say this, like work on bigger campaigns related to moving away from, the fossil fuel industry to also jobs that are focused on communications and media and marketing. So I'd say we are now at a point where we have a diversity of roles, diversity of industries, and diversity of, career level or seniority, which has been really exciting. Right now, I would say in terms of, proportion, we definitely have more, I guess, mid-level and entry level jobs, but then we will do some executive level jobs, and we actually do get a really good response to those too, which we didn't expect, but it just shows you again that the higher the volume of the people using this platform, I think the more people are going to tap into it as their main go-to service for hiring and recruitment.
So have you seen any trends over the course of the last year in terms of the industries that are posting or the types of jobs that are posting, other than just the seniority level? Like, are there certain industries that seem to be hiring more rather than others?
I mean, I just think climate tech in general, like so many startups that are emerging now to try to build, the clean energy technologies of tomorrow are now, having these really big random sporadic hiring sprees, which is really interesting. And so we're seeing this trend that as climate tech continues to receive more funding and those startups start to grow and those coalitions start to grow, then more people are hiring for those jobs, honestly. That's been something that I found really interesting, is like, as that industry continues to expand, they're going to keep wanting to hire more talent in those spaces. I would also say the other thing that I've noticed as a trend is definitely just like more like for-profit companies actually creating sustainability departments. That's become an emerging thing. Again, like that goes into the category of like, okay, is that sustainability as lip service or like actual sustainability? We can get into that later, but it is interesting to see that a lot of companies are noticing that having a sustainability department, having roles like that, it's not like this weird taboo like extra thing, that it's actually going to become very central to making sure your business is actually relevant, especially to young Gen Z millennial consumers. Really important that companies and businesses have a strategy, and I think young people know if that's legit or not. But I think that's really cool, because now it means like it's not just conservation work or what you would think of having to be a climate scientist or having to be in academia. You can actually have a corporate skill set and actually now go into a climate job. And like, I don't think we've lived in a society that has allowed the space for that until right now, which I think is really exciting.
Yeah, it's actually really impressive. I mean, 10 years ago, no Fortune 5 companies had chief sustainability officers, and now they all do, and they have whole departments underneath them. We're going to have the chief sustainability officers from Microsoft and Salesforce at Techonomy Climate talking about what their initiatives are. So do you see those types of jobs starting to float through the board, the Microsofts and the Salesforces, and like what you would think was like big corporations, but that are building out a sustainability franchise inside their business? Are those the things that you're starting to see?
Yeah, I definitely see like it's emerging. And I think that the issue is though, is like there needs to be like, people that are kind of building the plane as they're flying it. I think a lot of this is very experimental, especially for companies that maybe weren't traditionally in the climate environmental space. It can feel intimidating, almost like, oh my gosh, anything I do is not going to be right. Or the opposite, I'm going to act like everything I do is right, but I'm actually not fulfilling the goals or hitting the targets that I need to be hitting. And so we're seeing this interesting paradigm shift where sustainability is becoming the buzzword. It's becoming the exciting thing to be a part of. Whether that actually gets executed effectively, I think is another conversation. But I think we're seeing that emerging trend that companies are starting to recognize, like, we need to address this or we are going to become obsolete. And I think that that's an exciting new wave. So yeah.
I was at South by Southwest last week, right as the Silicon Valley Bank went under. And Silicon Valley Bank obviously tied to a variety of Silicon Valley companies. A lot of climate tech companies are being funded through that bank. Have you seen any fallout in terms of the clients you're working with, or the people that are posting, or people taking down job descriptions that used to be there because suddenly there's all this insecurity in the market?
At least for our end, I mean, knock on wood, that has not really happened to us as much. I think it's also a testament that, like, I think climate tech is a new industry we're entering into. And there was some climate tech companies that have used this in the past. That they used us in the past and it wasn't like current. And then they posted about like how they were impacted by what just happened. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it remains to be seen for everyone, including like the economy overall, on how that situation is going to impact so many different industries, especially in the climate space. But at least on our end, it hasn't necessarily panned out as like a direct, like, oh, wow, we lost X or YZ thing yet, but maybe in the future we'll find out that like there could have been, certain climate tech companies or partners that we are excited about working with, and maybe they have to freeze their hiring practices for the foreseeable future. But so far that hasn't come up yet. So
It's good news. So I'll remind people you can ask questions in the question and answer section of the Zoom, or also in the chat, and we can get to them there. Let me ask you. You were in Washington D.C. last year to learn about the IRA and all of the stuff that's in that bill that addresses climate challenges. We're going to go pretty deep into that at Climate Tech West. Tell me what you learned in Washington, who you met with, and how you see the IRA playing a role in the green economy.
Yeah, so I mean, I had the privilege in September of last year to be invited with a private group of a couple of content creators across the US, especially young people who were being viewed as the new outlets of information for especially young people to learn about what's going on with the government. And so I was invited to report and learn about the Inflation Reduction Act. And a big part of that was talking about the creation of jobs. Like there's going to be millions of these, clean energy jobs that you don't necessarily need a degree to even access. The goal of those is to tap into community partnerships with the hope that these will be unionized, good paying jobs. Again, like the plan and the execution of that, we'll have to see how that pans out. But it was exciting to see that like there was hope and there's conversations that like we can actually do this. We can build the infrastructure of the future that moves us away from, extractive industries. And I think the possibility of that could also encourage, especially young people who might not want to go to college, that they can build an actual career, a lifetime, good paying, long-term career, and also be a part of this social impact was really exciting. And, it was the first time in a long time that I felt like it was at least a drop in the bucket towards the right direction, towards climate action. It happened not as fast as it should have happened, but I think it's a good start. I think it's just now a matter of like, how do we actually get people into those jobs? How do we get people excited about what was in the Inflation Reduction Act and make sure communities can actually access those benefits, which is going to be a huge haul of education, of getting people excited. And that's what I'm really excited about with Green Jobs Board. We actually want to start exploring what does it look like to make things like becoming an electrician or working a manufacturing job or installing a solar array. Like, how do you actually make that attractive? And a big part of it is going to be like, working with community partnerships, being able to like understand what is the lay of the land that currently exists for workforce development in America. And, us as a company, we want to plug in where we can to be useful, to make those things a bit easier for people.
So what advice do you have somebody who, let's say it's a young person who's about to go to college or coming out of college, it's looking to build a career in this space because it gives them some kind of emotional or satisfaction? Like, what advice do you have to like, for somebody just starting off in this space?
Well, I would obviously tell them to follow the Green Jobs Board, because our big thing is like, if you don't even know where to start, here is options. And so I would just say, like, especially for a young person, like we're all on social media, use those tools to be able to connect and build relationships. I think starting with something like the Green Jobs Board, maybe you'll find a position or a company or organization that you like, then look up those people on LinkedIn, maybe someone that works there. Actually send them a direct message or an email introducing yourself, what you're passionate about. It doesn't matter how young you are. There's so many people that are receptive to providing mentorship, especially in this space. And just reach out and say, hey, can I get 15, 30 minutes on your calendar just to introduce myself, to get to know more about your work, because I really love what X organization or company is doing, and have that conversation. So then that person can put a face to a name, And in the future, they're in your network. They're going to advocate for you. They're going to, maybe potentially be your future employer. So I think it's really important if you're starting out, start building that ecosystem of your allies, your co-conspirators, the people who can really vouch for your talents and expertise. And also, so that way, what are the positions in the companies out there. And yeah, someone asked, is that the same thing as an informational interview? That totally is. I think if you are trying to apply specifically for a position, that's a bit different, because maybe then you would ask more of the details of like, what does that position exactly look like and what is the day-to-day? Whereas just getting to know someone in their career journey is a little bit different. But I would say both of those things, you could do both. You could first get to know that person and then later on do an informational interview about that specific position. There's not really like a rule book on it. It's more so just like making sure you're putting yourself out there to get as much information and inventory as possible. So that way you can make an informed decision as you are building your career on what steps you want to take, what are the industries, what are the types of positions you want to go for. And maybe that'll lead you to pursuing, a master's degree or other forms of higher education, get a certification, attend X, Y, and Z conference. You can't know what you don't know. And I think the way to fill that gap is through relationships. You can obviously read a lot of books, join the Green Jobs Board, join a lot of platforms that educate you, but ultimately I think it does come down to relationships. And so it's really important to have those conversations and start developing that vocabulary for yourself. I think that's really critical as you're building a career in an industry like climate that is evolving, it's growing, it can be a bit more amorphous and overwhelming. I think building those relationships can give you those tracker points to build that pathway.
So obviously, solving the climate crisis is going to involve government. It's going to involve the private sector. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. But just as individuals, as consumers, as people, the decisions we make every day have a big impact on the environment. What recommendations do you have? What steps do you take in your life to sort of live a more sustainable life and actually lower your impact on the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the biggest thing that I try my best to do is obviously energy efficiency. I always make sure my home is a very energy efficient. I think the other piece that I'm always thinking about is going beyond carbon offsetting. I think I do offset the flights that I have and things like that, because I travel a lot for work. But I'm always thinking about like, how am I creating partnerships with organizations that are actually benefiting from carbon offsets. So I'm always thinking about like, how am I just directly helping communities on the ground with the work that they do, by amplifying, by working with them, because they are coming up with the climate solutions. And I know that that's not like a direct, like, okay, I eat plant-based majority, because I do that too, right? I do a lot of these like things where it's like, I'll eat majority plant-based. I'll have like, I'll make sure that I use public transit, that I live in like the New York City area. So I make sure I use public transit when I can. I am always making sure that I try to use reusables, things like that. But I think deeper than that, in terms of my own decarbonization and what we do with Green Jobs Board, is really working with companies and organizations that are doing the decarbonization, and nonprofits. And for me, I feel like that's my biggest impact of dealing with my carbon footprint as an organization, is being able to like help those organizations and companies do what they do best even better. And I think with that being said, that allows them to be able to scale decarbonization faster. So yeah, but yeah, I do all the individual things too.
Perfect. Well, Kristy, thanks so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your insights, and it sounds like you've got a thriving job board there.
Yeah, no, thank you all so much. Yeah, if you want to stay in touch, I'm Brown Girl Green and Green Jobs Board on social media, and I'm also on LinkedIn as Kristy Drutman. So yeah, thank you all so much for this conversation.
Great, absolutely. I'm Dan Costa with Worth Magazine. If you want to get a transcript of this conversation, you can find it on worth.com and on techonomy.com. Thanks so much for joining us. I'll see you out there.
Thanks.